This week I got a chance to spend a lot of time with people as they just did their life. Many of whom were ill or caring for someone who's ill. And I kept hearing the same testimony of the people that I met this week. And much of it is stated in that song. That's their testimony. They would say things over and over again like, Pastor, it's like God wouldn't rest until he found me. We were lost. And I wasn't looking for God. I wasn't that troubled that I was lost. But God seemed bothered by it. And he kept seeking me. Some were able to give that testimony on behalf of family members, that didn't happen in their life, but that they're sitting here enjoying relationship with God because their father, their grandfather, their grandmother was lost, and God sought them out. I heard that testimony over and over again, particularly this week, and I was grateful for it. It's the type of reminding that I feel all the time, but I feel like we also need all the time. I sat in an AA meeting a while back with a friend who was coming out of addiction. And he said, they speak about a higher power there. I just sometimes really want to know that somebody in the room knows that it's not just an ethereal higher power, but it's Jesus Christ who saved me. And so he would invite Christians to come with him just for an hour so that when he spent time acknowledging this higher power, there'd be at least someone in the room who knew who he was talking about. And I sat there with him, and he kept murmuring the same thing. People were talking about their stories and where they had been, and he kept agreeing and saying, yeah, me too, me too, me too. And when it came to his time to tell his story, he just simply said, I was living so low. And now I live clean. And it's so much better. It's so much better than what I was living. And then he looked at the group and he said, and the truth is, all the results that I got from low living, I completely deserved. I earned every single one of them. I invited them, I asked her, I knew what it was leading to, and I walked willingly down all those roads, and I deserved all of that. And he said, and today, I live this higher, better, cleaner, healthier, more legal, more prosperous life, and I don't deserve it. When I was living low, I earned those consequences, and now that I have a job and a healthy relationship and a functional life, and happiness and joy and light and truth and freedom, I haven't earned any of that. And for the rest of the time, he sort of just kept repeating and murmuring over and over. He just kind of kept saying, I don't deserve this. God, you've been completely irresponsible with your love. You've showered me with goodness. And you've invested in the wrong place because you know I'm not responsible. And you know I didn't do anything to earn this or merit any of this. You're giving a good grade to a failing report. And he spent the hour just over and over again saying, I don't deserve this. And what he was really struck by was that it was the actual king giving him a pardon. That fact just blew his mind. He was like, but Stretch, the king has forgiven me. I mean, my kids have shown me grace and forgive me. Some of my family has. One of my old bosses did. The other one's still pretty mad. He should be. But why is the king forgiving me? And nothing I said could make any sense in his brain. And I was reminded that we can't really make sense of it. Our earthly commerce, our currency that we deal in, it doesn't leave room for reckless love and grace. I want to reward a job well done. If you only do a half job well done, I want to only give you half of that. And assume that you understand the reason why, and we all walk away nodding and going, yeah, that seems fair. But when the king gives a pardon to the completely guilty, the inept, the selfish, and he said this at one point, he said, but Stretch, I think he was forgiving me before I was asking. Like, I know that he was showing me grace and protection and blessing when I wasn't asking. He said, who does that? You don't forgive your neighbor when they've wronged you unless they come over and knock on your door and say, hey, I'm really sorry, I was wrong. And then you get an opportunity to speak into that and go, you know what, you were. No, I didn't like it at all. Well, and they said, well, I brought you this pie, and I want to make things right. And you go, well, I do like pie. That does actually help make things right. I want to remind you once again, you were wrong, and I wasn't wrong for feeling that way, right? And we all walk away going, no, right, I am justified in my feelings, and I'm justified in feeling this way, and you're justified in feeling sorry, and so I think we'll meet somewhere in the middle. And the most magnanimous of the neighbors say, you know what, let's split this pie together. And we'll celebrate our arrangement to fall back into being good neighbors. Now remember, you keep doing your part, and I'll keep doing my part, and we'll keep that fence right there too, so everyone knows what's yours and what's mine, and we won't confuse this any longer. That'll work, right? And we all walk away and say, now that's civility. America, what a great country. We can work out our differences and live in peace. The king did none of that. And my friend sat there after hearing, and he said, every one of the testimonies, he goes, that was my story. Yep, that's my story. You go to an AA meeting, and the stories are very similar. I was lost. I was trapped. I was disobeying. I was breaking covenant, trust, laws. I was not concerned about anyone else. And I was laser focused on getting my need met. And still the king comes through and says, I can offer you better. It begins with pardon. It ends with freedom. Acquiring new skills in a tool belt that once was just empty. It ends with closeness and relationship that hasn't been earned, just graced. And it's only because of the king. If anybody else had come to the Lord and said, I see how much you love your children and how much they've broken relationship with you, so I'll go and pay the price. The Lord would have said, I appreciate that. It's very nice. But you don't have enough. You don't have what it takes to pay that price. Only the king has that. And Jesus, the Christ, was the only one who could have paid it. And Scripture says he willingly removed himself from the throne of glory, his rightful place as the king, and humiliated himself and vouched for us. It's a hymn writer that I'm just always intrigued by. As a kid, I think it was just because of her name. Because if her name is Fanny, and you're an 8-year-old boy, it's just a funny name. I can't imagine what mother looks at a baby and goes, Fanny. So we're going to name this one. And Fanny had a lot of creativity, but she had a lot of tough circumstances. She got a cold when she was an infant, about 18-20. No all-night CVS, no Sudafed, no NyQuil, no Tylenol, just doctors who sort of knew some things scientifically, but not a lot. In the middle of the night, Fanny's mom brings the baby over and says, she has this cold and she can't sleep. What do we do? And this other doctor, because their regular doctor was away, filled in and just literally messed up. And did some things with the baby that were well-intentioned, but left her blind. And so before the age of 1, she loses her sight because she had a cold and a ill-informed doctor. Her parents introduce her to the king. And she's pretty creative. She's got a lot of free time on her hands, so she starts writing. And she starts writing things that we now recognize as many of the hymns in the book right in front of you. She, in her lifetime, wrote so many hymns, over 8,000 of them, that the publishers asked her to come up with other names because people didn't want to buy a hymnal filled with 300 songs written by the same lady. So she came up with over 100 different pen names, pseudonyms, so that it looked like there was a variety, a myriad of lots of different people all celebrating the goodness of God. And in reality, 9 out of 10 of the hymns that our early church around the turn of the century we were singing were all her lyrics. She writes this at one point in her life. Oh, what a happy soul I am. Although I cannot see, I am resolved that in this world, contented I will be. How many blessings I enjoy that other people don't. To weep and sigh because I'm blind, I will not, I simply won't. Sounds a little Dr. Seuss. My Jesus is good, she writes. I love him so. He's my king. I love him so. She was 8 when she wrote that. You know what I was writing when I was 8? Nothing. And at that early age, she recognized that this king was higher and better and greater, and there was not a need for equity or fairness. There wasn't a need for an explanation of all my circumstances. And what 8-year-old doesn't live in that world? To say, wait, but this doesn't seem fair, and how come this happened to me? And I'd like an explanation as to why, and how can I get better than this? And here she sits saying, I couldn't imagine anything better than this. She writes words like, I have a blessed assurance. Jesus is mine. My addict friend in that meeting said that phrase a couple times and said, Stretch, I don't understand why Jesus is allowing me to call him mine. He shouldn't know my name. He shouldn't be bothered by my pitiful existence. But why is he allowing me to be so close to him that he gives me the honor, the place of honor to say, I'm yours and you're mine? Christ the King Sunday is one of those Sundays that I stop and think back on all these conversations and think, it's too much. It's too much what God has done. Why would he allow us this standing in places we have no business being? Fanny talks a little about being vouched for in some of her writings, and that phrase is interesting to me. In our Italian family, that side of our family, being vouched for is just common. It's literally a necessity. I'm walking down any West Philadelphia, Norristown sort of road, neighborhood, in the mall, at the grocery store, at the Acme or Gennardi's, and I'm around, and some older guy might stop me and say, hey, your face, I recognize, where do I know you from? So I start going through the list of who could vouch for me. Who would he know that I know that we could make that like 7 degrees of separation to like, oh. And here's what always happens. Somehow, some way, we'd find a way to come all the way around and say, oh, okay, yeah, it's Oviedo. Yeah, with the kid who's got you're the kid who walks the dog at a Louis, yeah, and, oh, right, you're Dick Dean, yeah, okay, all right. Hey, get yourself some candy. Hey, pull out some money. Hey, get yourself some candy. Why? That guy didn't give me any money from candy. I don't think I've ever met you before. Nah, but you're the Dean boy. Yeah, sure. But Vito and Louis, sure. Yeah, hey, you be good. We're watching. Oh, gosh, okay. Well, now I'm being vouched for and scrutinized. But all of it comes out of relationship. And that concept of being vouched for just followed through. I think I have that in my own head now. I think I sort of see it on campus sometimes. Some of you non-Nazarenes might walk around on this campus sometimes and you feel that a little bit like, there's nobody here that can vouch for me. I told you before, I met this kid, Doug Mann, first day of college here, freshman year. I was like, this is weird. Isn't that building name like the Mann Student Center? He's like, that's my grandfather. I was like, what? Your family has buildings named after you? And I immediately felt like, well, I should probably hang out with Doug a little bit. He's being vouched for around here. And I'm nobody. But I mean, if Doug needed something, he could probably get it. He's got people. This vouching for thing, I don't know if it's been in your world, but it's a pretty regular thing in mine. Somebody calls me and says, hey, we need a good speaker for a revival stretch. And if I give out a name, they're vouched for. I get calls from people all the time. Hey, I'm doing a revival out in Montana. Oh, yeah, who do you know out there? Nobody, but they said you vouched for me, so I'm going out. Then I start to think, hey, better do a good job. Because now my name's on the Montana revival, so don't screw it up. I'm vouching for you. I got vouched for once in a place that I will never forget. West of Philadelphia, a little town called Westchester, Pennsylvania. I was good friends with the pastor's family there who introduced me to some of their families, and the Griffins and the Taylors were good friends, so they vouched for me, and I just became part of their family. And we'd play ball together and then come back and eat all their food together. Dr. Taylor was a traveling evangelist, and when he preached, he did this thing that, like, you would remember. He had this voice, and it always sounded like this. And he would hold out notes when he talked. And it came with a gravitas that was just deeper. You know, I always feel, I can't stand, like right now you're watching it on Facebook Live and you hear this pastor and he's like, me, he's vouching for me, who cares? But when I hear Mr. Taylor preach, it sounded like God. And so wherever the Taylors were, I was trying to be. Pastor Taylor's son was Rob Taylor, and he was the largest human being I've ever personally known. We called him Mount Taylor. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers also thought he was the largest human being they'd ever seen, and so they hired him to be an offensive lineman. And Tampa Bay at that point was wearing colors that were just bright hunter fluorescent orange with these flowery pirate people on their heads with these feathers flowing, and it was a ridiculous outfit. But when Rob wore it, he scared me. And so Rob would hang out with us all the time, and one time we were shooting ball. He comes by in his car, and he says, hey, fellas, I'm going to work out. Could you guys spot me? And this happened frequently. Rob was so gracious that he would pretend like all 72 pounds of my 3'4" frame, while he was bench pressing 472 pounds, he needed my help in spotting him for safety. And I'd say, oh, yeah, hey, Rob needs us, come on. The three of us drop the ball, hop in the car. We drive into Philly, we go down to South Philly, and all of a sudden we're in the parking lot of the sports complex. And in Philadelphia, they just said, this is where we're going to do everything cool, concerts, sports, everything. And it's just huge open parking lot with 4 stadiums. Flyers, Sixers, Eagles, Phillies, concerts, Bruce Springsteen, Jimmy Buffett, everything at the same time. Well, we walk in and there's nothing happening. I've never been in this complex where nothing was happening. Why? Because it was Tuesday at 9 in the morning, and we're the only ones there. I said, Rob, where are we working out? He said, in the Veteran Stadium was where the Eagles played, and in the NFL at that point, they had what was called courtesy. So if you were from another NFL team, but you were in the off-season residing or visiting in an away city, they would extend to you courtesy and say, you can use our workout facilities. And before I know anything, I'm out of Rob's car, and I'm down the back hallways of Veteran Stadium. And the field is pristine, and the seats are majestic, but the behind-the-stage stuff is nasty. It's moldy and dark, and it smells like old beer and urine. Can you taste it a little bit? Because I could. And it's a little disillusioning. And then we walked into where it said gym. And we walked in, and it's the only time I ever was in a hallway where the floor was carpeted, and the walls were carpeted, and the ceiling was carpeted, all with the same carpet. And it was like silent and beautiful, and it smelled like happiness. And there were these massive life-size pictures of all the Philadelphia legends. Wilbur Montgomery was over here, and Harold Carmichael and Bill Berge were over there. And I was seriously like in awe. And I'm looking around this whole hallway, and I turn to go, and I'm the only one in the hallway. The door down the way there was closing. So I kind of tried to quick get there, and the security guard came right aside and said, little man, what are you doing here? And at about age 12 or 13, it was really probably the first time that I literally had no words. Everything that came to mind sounded so dumb. I'm here with Rob Taylor, flowery helmet, orange, real big. He's going to work out with the Eagles. He needed me to spot him. I have, I'm 12, so I have no identification. It's 1982, so I have no cell phone. I don't even have a dime to call someone. I'm an idiot. And the man's looking at me, and he just goes, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to turn around. And in about 10 seconds, I'm going to turn back around, and you're not going to be here. And the only door that you're permitted to use is behind you. And you should be gone by the time I turn around. And all I could think inside was, yes, I should. Yes, I should be. I wish I was gone right now. I don't know why. I don't know what I have to go. So I start walking back, and the door opens up that way. And I look back, and I heard the coolest voice, and it was Rob's. And he went like this, "Hey, my man." And he was talking to the security guard. The security guard looked over and said, "Oh, hey, Mr. Taylor, how are you?" He didn't answer that question. He just gave a little more information. He pointed at me and said, "Hey, this one, he's with me." And everything changed. Everything. He's with me changed everything. The security guard's name was Leroy. I only know that because Rob knows him. And he said, "Leroy, come on, man. You know I need some help. What is that?" He goes, oh. He turns to me and he goes, "Sir, I am so sorry. I should have recognized. Come on." Grabs my hand. Now I'm sir. Now I'm deserving of an apology. He grabs my hand and he brings me into the workout room and says, "Now, Rob's locker is going to be over there, but you're free to put your things over here like I have things. And what I want you to do is make yourself at home here. Over here, make sure you stay hydrated." So over here. And in 1982, there was not things in my world like variety or options. When I was thirsty and playing sports, my mom said, "Hey, there's a water fountain." So that's what I used, always. We didn't have bottled water. I never, ever thought that I'd be cool enough to drink Gatorade. But on this wall over here, it was just one huge refrigerator with a glass door that you could walk into and literally walk in and pick up different Gatorades and sip them. And if you didn't like it, you just put it away in the trash and try another. And I got to do that all day long. And every once in a while, Rob would say, "Come here, stretch. Help me out, bro." And he would do this deadlift thing. And he would lift like a Volkswagen. And me and Kevin would go like this. "Oh, yeah, big boy. You got it. Yeah. Oh, and we both go, "Oh, yeah. Nice work. Yes. Yo, you did that, man. Let's go again. One more time." Doing nothing. I met Harold Carmichael that day. Harold Carmichael is think back about 10 years ago as a Patriots fan. He's the Randy Moss of Philadelphia at that point. Number 17. He was one of the tallest football players I'd ever seen, and I just wanted to be him. And at the end of that day, Harold knew my name because I followed him around everywhere and kept saying, "Hey, Harold, can I get you a drink? What else did you need? I'll get that towel for you." But I shouldn't have been there. There's nothing about that experience that I earned. This whole place and the whole atmosphere, none of it was for me. I shouldn't have been 50 miles close to that place. And there I was in the midst of it all. At one point, one of the athletes said, "Hey," he said anything because he was getting tired of me asking permission for everything. And finally, he just said, "Hey, you can do anything you want. You can have anything, whatever you want." It's like, "Well, what about this wet t-shirt that says Eagles? It's yours. Okay, well, it sounds great. I think I'll have another. But none of it was really for me. And it certainly wasn't because of me. But when Rob vouched for me, everything changed. He's with me, is what he said. And that's all that it took for my day, maybe my life, to change. Several places in Scripture, we find that Jesus' role right now is at the right hand of God the Father. And because he's the king, he sits on his throne and he advocates for us. At one point he says, if you acknowledge me before your people, I'll acknowledge you before the Father. Can you imagine what it will sound like when Christ the King speaks your name to the Father and says, she's with me? Can you imagine what happens all around you and inside of you and all about you, because the Father says, he's with me. I have this one. I'm vouching for this one. My AA friend is sitting there and he says, and I heard him use the same word. I don't know why the king is vouching for me. I've only proven to be unreliable, careless, and selfish, and reckless. And before the song that we had just sung was ever penned, he was using that word to describe him. Because of my recklessness, I've earned low living. But the king is vouching for me, and now I live higher and cleaner and better. Because children of the king, as royalty, they do live higher and cleaner and better. And he said, but I've been reckless. And what he was really saying is Jesus is actually being the reckless one with his grace. Rob didn't need me to help. If he was relying on me to help, he was in big trouble. Not only did I not deserve it, I wasn't capable of helping in any of those situations. If you knew me in college, you knew that I was about 139 pounds freshman year. Senior year, I got married right here, and I was 139 pounds. But in 7th grade, I was about 64 pounds. And I couldn't barely move the bench that Rob was sitting on to just change the angle. It was too heavy for me. I was useless. But all day long, Rob treated me as if I was valued. And all the blessings around me came because Rob saw value in me. And all around the world today, churches like this are gathering. And we're just looking back to heaven and saying, Christ, the King, why have you vouched for me? Why is my name on your lips. Why? First John 1 says, "My dear children, I write this so that you will not sin. But if you do, we have an advocate." And he's with the Father. And he's vouching for you. In churchy language, we call that, he's our atoning sacrifice. You know what it means? Because of him, you get to go in. He's paved the way, paid the price, vouched for you, and put his own name and reputation on the line. If I had messed up anything in that gym, if I had stepped out of line, people would have gone to Rob and said, "Hey, your boy, I thought you were going to keep him in line. I got to hold you responsible for your boy because you told me that he was with you." And today we celebrate Christ the King Sunday, fully recognizing that God's Son has put himself in that position, saying, "I'll vouch for you." So what I want to do is run out of this building today, and as we begin our Advent journey, live in such a way that I could only make the King proud. I can't do anything to earn my spot here. Now that God has shown me this favor, my response is I want to be completely obedient to his will and his way. If Rob had even just sniffed at something and said, "Hey," I would have stopped that day. I was going to hang on his every word. Whatever he said to do, I would do. If he said I could have it, I would take it. If he said drop it, I would drop it. Because I didn't want to do anything to ruin this relationship because Rob was the only reason I get to stay here. And now, my response to the King is just that. That night in AA, near the end, one of them coming out of the meeting grabbed him behind and said, "You know, it's funny you were talking about churchy stuff because I just always feel like the churchy stuff, like I go there and they just tell me I got to do this and I can't do that, and it's just all these rules." And my friend said, oh, dude, you went to the wrong church. Nothing I do is because of the rules. I don't think God even cares that much about so many rules. He's done so much for me. I don't want to do anything that would mess things up between me and the King. And that night I understood the obedient response, why we Nazarenes care about the life of holiness so much, because it's the proper and perfect response to someone who's been so gracious. All I wanted to do with Rob that day is do whatever he said. I didn't want to cause any problems. I didn't want to step out of line. He had been so good to me that day. And I heard the exact same thing coming out of AA that night. Oh, I'm not running around like looking over my shoulder going, "Oh no, is God going to be mad at me? Did I break this rule or that rule?" No. I'm trying to stay laser focused so that I just bring him joy. I owe him so much. That helped me. It freed me. And I resonate with that. I love going to your church where I can look around this room and see so many people who have been so very clear with your lifestyle for many, many years that because God has vouched for you, you just want to obey. Many of you have surrendered your entire life, your marriage, your resources, your property, your transportation, your vocation, your children, everything over to the King. And you did it willingly. I remember I would have done anything Rob Taylor told me to do that day. It couldn't have made the little bit of sense. I would have done it. Here's a stretch. Stick out your tongue. Okay. I just do it. Let's stand on one foot. I got to. Somebody walked by an hour later. Why are you standing there like that? I have to, Rob said. I just would never have even thought about questioning him. Be like, wait, why are you asking me that? Because my life already didn't make any sense. My parents would later go, wait, why were you in the Eagles workout facility? Wait, what? And none of the story made sense to them. None of it. At the end of telling the story, I had to question myself and go, that happened to me, right? I'm not lying. I'm not even that creative to make that up. Why did that happen? My dad would go, I don't know. Because Rob vouched for me. This year, why I'm going to encourage you to come join us at church, dive into a small group, get into your word, maybe join a men's group to support one another as you're trying to be a father and a husband and faithful and a hard worker, man of God. You know why? Because we need each other. And I, like you, owe the King my life. And I want to do it with excellence. Worship team, come on, let's close this out with some singing and some joy. Next week, I'm going to ask you to bring in some tangible food sacrifice that we're going to bless Quincy Crisis Center with. All right, so with your tithe, part of your offering next week will be to bring in food, and we're just going to dump it right up at the altar. We used to sing a song at my old church, and it would say, "We bring the sacrifice of praise." And we were doing a church membership class with the preteens one year, and I said, "Are there any other questions?" And Jesse raised his hand. I said, "Jesse, what's your question?" He goes, "What does God do with the sacks of rice?" And I said, "I'm sorry, what?" He says, "Every week at offering time, we sing, 'We bring the sacks of rice on trays.' Why does God need them?" And I realized he didn't know a thing of what we were talking about. Next week, we're actually going to bring the sacks of rice. You can put it on a tray if you want, but we're going to bring it to the altar and just share. Think of it like this. If your table is filled this holiday season, share that. I don't want to enjoy a full table and not have somebody else enjoy it as well. So next week, bring the sacks of rice on trays. And we'll bring it forward and we'll celebrate. Now, why don't we stand and let's give the King our worship. Sing out.